We're seizing our rightful portion of your father's inheritance. Vacate the house immediately." My stepmother Diane's voice hissed through the phone, laced with venom and dripping with malicious intent. My heart pounded in my chest, but I forced my voice to remain calm and unwavering. "Speak to my lawyer," I replied coolly before abruptly ending the call. My name is Sophie Palmer, a 34-year-old financial consultant based in the bustling city of Chicago. 3 weeks ago, my father passed away after a grueling battle with cancer, leaving behind a tangled web of strained relationships and a substantial estate. Diane, my stepmother, whom he married 5 years ago, had always harbored resentment toward the unbreakable bond one shared with my father. Over the years, she relentlessly attempted to sow discord between us, but my father, with his keen insight, saw through her manipulative schemes. What Diane remained blissfully unaware of was that my father had meticulously prepared for this very confrontation. In the final month of his life, as his illness worsened, my father and I engaged in heartfelt, extensive conversations about his estate. We sat together in the quiet of his office, surrounded by shelves of books and memories of his life's work. He confided in me about Diane's increasingly controlling and hostile behavior. She had tried to isolate him, claiming he needed rest to deter my visits and intercepting my phone calls under the guise of protecting his health. But my father was no fool. "Sophie," he said during one of our private meetings, his voice steady despite his frailty, "I've seen how Diane treats you. I know the depths of her ambition, and I refuse to let her strip you of what's rightfully yours." With foresight and precision, he had already begun collaborating with his trusted lawyer to safeguard his assets and ensure they were distributed according to his wishes. The family home, a cherished haven filled with memories of my childhood laughter and my mother's gentle presence, had been legally transferred into my name months earlier. The bulk of his estate was meticulously allocated to me through ironclad trusts and legal documents designed to withstand any challenge. Ever the strategic planner, my father had even recorded video testaments, clearly articulating his decisions to preempt any attempts by Diane to contest his will. Now, as I sat in my cozy Chicago apartment, staring at the phone still warm from Diane's venomous call, a faint smile crept across my face. Her premature declaration of victory was about to unravel spectacularly. My father's lawyer, Richard, would contact her first thing in the morning with news that would shatter her illusions of triumph. Sometimes, the most satisfying revenge is allowing someone's own greed to orchestrate their downfall. I poured myself a glass of rich red wine and opened my laptop to review the estate documents once more, the glow of the screen illuminating the quiet room. The days ahead promised to be fraught with tension, but I was ready. Growing up, I watched my father build his real estate empire from the ground up, a testament to his tenacity and vision. After my mother succumbed to breast cancer when I was 12, it was just the two of us for many years. Our bond deepened through shared moments, late-night talks, school events he never missed despite his demanding schedule, and patient evenings spent helping me with homework. Those years shaped my resilience and fueled my passion for finance, leading me to my career. Everything changed when Diane entered our lives. She was a receptionist at one of my father's properties, a woman 15 years his junior, with a penchant for extravagance. Within 6 months of meeting, they were married. I was 29 at the time, carving out my own path, but I quickly noticed Diane's attempts to assert control. Initially subtle, she would suggest my father was too fatigued for our weekly dinners or too preoccupied to take my calls. Over time, her true nature emerged. She redecorated our family home, erasing every trace of my mother's warmth with ostentatious decor. She persuaded my father to purchase luxury cars and designer wardrobes, insisting they were necessary to uphold her image as his wife. I watched with growing unease as she alienated him from lifelong friends and business associates, criticizing anyone who dared challenge her. About 2 years ago, as my father's health began to decline, he confided in me about his growing suspicions. He had caught Diane rifling through his financial records late at night and noticed her probing questions about his will and business holdings. "I married her because I was lonely," he admitted during one of his chemotherapy sessions, his voice heavy with regret. "But I won't let my mistake harm you, Sophie. You're my daughter, my legacy. Everything I've built is for you." In his final months, we worked tirelessly to put his affairs in order, ensuring every detail was legally unassailable. He recorded videos explaining his decisions, anticipating Diane's attempts to portray me as a scheming daughter exploiting a vulnerable man. My father was always 3 steps ahead, even in his weakened state. The weight of his trust in me, coupled with his determination to shield me from Diane's avarice, fortified my resolve to honor his wishes. That evening, as I sifted through old family photos in my apartment, memories of my father's laughter and wisdom flooded back. The real battle was just beginning, but I was prepared. The morning after Diane's threatening call, I met with Richard, my father's longtime lawyer and confidant, at his downtown office. His expression was stern yet resolute as he updated me on the latest developments. "Sophie, Diane's lawyer reached out last night. They're planning to contest the will, claiming your father lacked mental capacity when he revised it," Richard explained, organizing a stack of documents on his desk. "But they're unaware we have everything documented on video." My father had insisted on recording every meeting where he discussed his estate plans, clearly articulating his reasoning and demonstrating his mental clarity. He had even arranged for his doctors to document his cognitive state during these decisions, as if he foresaw Diane's every move. "They're pushing for an emergency hearing," Richard continued. "Diane claims she needs immediate access to the accounts for household expenses. She doesn't realize all utilities and bills have been transferred to your name." A wave of anger surged through me as I recalled how Diane had treated my father in his final months, restricting his visitors, monitoring his phone calls, and hovering possessively during my visits. Yet, my father had outmaneuvered her, and now it was time for his foresight to bear fruit. "When's the hearing?" I asked, sensing it would be a pivotal moment. "Tomorrow morning. Their rush for speed will work against them. They haven't had time to fabricate evidence, and we have everything meticulously documented," Richard said, a slight smile breaking through his serious demeanor. "Your father was brilliant, Sophie. He knew exactly what he was doing." That night, sleep eluded me. I kept replaying my father's final days, how Diane had tried to dominate every aspect of his life, even attempting to bar me from his hospital room under the pretense of his need for rest. Little did she know, during those precious final moments, my father and I had solidified his legacy. I pulled out the last birthday card he gave me, his handwritten words resonating deeply. "Sometimes, Sophie, the best revenge is letting people stumble over their own greed." As I prepared the documents for the hearing, a mix of sorrow and determination washed over me. This fight was no longer just about the inheritance. It was about honoring my father's final wishes and standing firm against the woman who had tried to fracture our bond. The morning of the hearing dawned with a palpable tension in the courthouse. Diane sat across the aisle with her lawyer, clad in an expensive black dress, her face adorned with a confident smirk. She had even brought her adult children, likely to bolster her image as a grieving widow surrounded by a devoted family. Their hushed whispers and sidelong glances in my direction betrayed their confidence in an easy victory. "Don't let them unsettle you," Richard murmured as we awaited the judge's entrance, his voice a steady anchor. "Everything is in place. Let the evidence speak for itself." When Diane's lawyer rose to present their case, it unfolded exactly as we had anticipated. He painted me as a conniving daughter who had exploited a dying man, while portraying Diane as the devoted wife who had sacrificed everything to care for my father. His audacity peaked when he suggested my father's mental state had been compromised by illness and medication. "Your Honor," he declared with theatrical flourish, "Mrs. Palmer simply seeks what her husband would have wanted, to maintain the lifestyle they shared and preserve the family home they built together." My blood boiled at the word "together." Diane had spent a mere 5 years with my father, most of it squandering his wealth and isolating him from loved ones. She had contributed nothing to the business or the home he had painstakingly built over 3 decades. Richard remained composed as he stood to present our defense. "Your Honor, I submit not only the legal documentation of Mr. Palmer's wishes, but also video evidence of him explicitly stating his decisions and the reasoning behind them. A hush fell over the courtroom as my father's face appeared on the screen. Though weary from illness, his eyes gleamed with clarity and resolve. "I am making these changes to my will of sound mind and body," he stated firmly. "My daughter, Sophie, is the rightful heir to my estate. My current wife, Diane, has been adequately provided for through her prenuptial agreement, but she will not inherit my business or family home. These belong to my daughter." I watched as Diane's smug smirk faltered, her complexion growing paler with each passing moment. Her lawyer shifted uncomfortably in his seat as Richard methodically unveiled more evidence: documented conversations, medical evaluations, and the meticulous paper trail my father had crafted. The judge leaned forward, scrutinizing the documents with keen interest. The medical reports confirming my father's mental clarity were particularly devastating to Diane's case. Then came the most damning evidence: surveillance footage from my father's home office, capturing Diane furtively searching through his files late at night, coupled with bank statements revealing suspicious transfers she had attempted in the weeks before his death. "Furthermore, Your Honor," Richard continued, his voice steady, "we have evidence that Mrs. Palmer attempted to transfer significant sums from Mr. Palmer's business accounts to her personal accounts without authorization, just days before his passing." Diane's face flushed from pale to crimson. Her lawyer leaned over, whispering urgently, but she brushed him off, rising abruptly. "He promised me everything," she erupted, her composure shattering. "Sophie manipulated him against me. I deserve that house. I was his wife." "Mrs. Palmer, please be seated," the judge ordered sternly, his tone brooking no argument. "Your outburst is not helping your case." I remained silent, observing as Diane's carefully curated facade crumbled. Her children, once so smug, now avoided eye contact, their embarrassment palpable. Whispers rippled through the courtroom as Diane continued to protest, her voice growing shrill. Richard then presented the final piece of evidence, a video recorded just 2 weeks before my father's death, in which he detailed his concerns about Diane's behavior and his reasons for his estate planning decisions. The courtroom fell silent, captivated by my father's weakened yet lucid voice describing how Diane had attempted to isolate him and control his assets. "Order in the court," the judge demanded, banging his gavel as murmurs arose. Based on the overwhelming evidence, the judge declared, "I am prepared to make my ruling." I held my breath, though I knew our victory was assured. My father's meticulous preparation had left no room for doubt. Hearing the judge officially uphold all of my father's final wishes lifted an immense weight from my shoulders. Furthermore, the judge added, fixing Diane with a piercing gaze, "Any attempts to contest this ruling will trigger a thorough investigation into the suspicious financial activities brought to light today." Do I make myself clear? The judge's words reverberated through the courtroom as Diane slumped in her chair, finally silenced. Her lawyer hurriedly gathered his papers, recognizing their defeat. But the judge wasn't finished. The court also orders a full audit of all financial transactions made by Mrs. Palmer during her marriage to the deceased, he continued. Given the evidence of attempted unauthorized transfers, this matter will be referred to the appropriate authorities for investigation. Diane's face drained of all color. Her children, who had entered the courtroom with such arrogance, now slipped out quietly, abandoning their mother. The illusion of the grieving widow had shattered, revealing the truth my father had always known. As we left the courthouse, Richard handed me a sealed envelope. "Your father asked me to give you this after the hearing," he said softly. Inside was a letter from my father, accompanied by photos of us from my childhood, standing proudly in front of our first real estate project together. "My dearest Sophie," the letter began, his familiar handwriting bringing a lump to my throat. "If you're reading this, then everything has gone according to plan. I knew Diane would show her true colors eventually. While I regret bringing her into our lives, I never doubted your strength or intelligence. The business is yours now, everything we built together. You were always my true partner in this journey." Tears welled in my eyes, but they were not of sorrow. My father had given me one final gift, not just the inheritance, but the profound satisfaction of seeing justice served. Through his careful planning and foresight, he had ensured the truth would prevail. That evening, as I sat in my father's study, now my study, I noticed Diane's designer bag still resting in a corner. She would need to collect her personal belongings soon, but it would be her final visit to a house that had never truly been hers. 2 weeks after the hearing, I began sorting through my father's belongings, each room a tapestry of memories. His study, however, stirred the deepest emotions. Sitting at his desk, surrounded by 30 years of business records, family photos, and personal mementos, I recalled the evenings he spent teaching me about real estate, patiently explaining property assessments and market trends when I was barely old enough to grasp them. Diane had scheduled a supervised visit to collect her belongings, overseen by our lawyers. As I prepared for her arrival, I stumbled upon something extraordinary, a hidden compartment in my father's desk containing a journal. Within its pages, he had meticulously documented Diane's manipulations, her secret phone calls, her late-night snooping through his files. He had known her true nature, but had played along, all while safeguarding what mattered most. The police investigation into Diane's financial activities uncovered even more than we had anticipated. She had attempted to siphon nearly $300,000 from my father's accounts in his final weeks. The detective assigned to the case discovered similar patterns in her past relationships, revealing a history of targeting wealthy older men. None, however, had been as prepared as my father. I immersed myself in running the business, building upon the foundation he had laid. The employees welcomed me warmly, many having known me since childhood and witnessed my father grooming me for leadership. They shared stories of how he had proudly displayed photos of my college graduation, my first real estate deal, and my successes, his pride evident in every word. One evening, while reviewing old contracts, I received an unexpected call from Thomas, one of Diane's children. "Sophie," he said hesitantly, his voice tinged with shame. "I wanted to apologize. We knew what our mother was doing, but we didn't stop her. Your father was a good man who deserved better." His words caught me off guard, yet they brought a sense of validation. Even Diane's own children had seen through her deception. Thomas revealed that she had executed similar schemes before, targeting wealthy older men. My father, however, had been different. He had anticipated her every move and outmaneuvered her completely. Under my leadership, the business flourished, and I began adding my own touches to my father's legacy. I established a scholarship program for aspiring real estate professionals, naming it in his honor. The first recipient was a young woman whose single father had sacrificed everything to support her education, a story that resonated deeply with me. It felt like a full-circle moment, a tribute to the values my father had instilled in me. The day Diane came to collect her belongings was fraught with tension. She arrived with 2 movers and her lawyer, her once polished appearance now noticeably diminished. As she moved through the house, I noticed her lingering gaze on certain items, particularly the lavish decorations she had persuaded my father to purchase. "You can take what you personally purchased," Richard reminded her firmly, holding a detailed inventory of the estate's assets. Diane's expression tightened as she realized how little she could claim. During this final visit, I remained composed, watching as Diane gathered her belongings under the watchful eyes of our lawyers. She paused at the threshold, casting one last glance at the home she had tried to claim as her own. "You think you've won," she muttered bitterly, her voice barely audible. I met her gaze, unflinching. "This was never about winning," I replied calmly. "It was about honoring my father's wishes." As she left, the door closing behind her, a profound sense of closure settled over me. The house, filled with memories of my father and mother, was mine to protect and cherish. I returned to the study, where I opened his journal once more, tracing his words with my fingers. His foresight, his love, and his trust in me had prevailed. The battle was over, but the legacy we had built together would endure, a testament to the bond no one could ever break. I maintained a deliberate distance, working quietly in my father's study, now my sanctuary, while Diane and her movers packed her belongings. Through the open door, I could hear her muttering resentfully about family heirlooms, though not a single item she coveted was rightfully hers. Richard, ever vigilant, intervened several times, thwarting her attempts to claim possessions that belonged to my mother or had been cherished in our family for generations. The most gratifying moment unfolded when Diane insisted that an antique grandfather clock, its polished wood gleaming in the foyer, had been promised to her by my father. Richard, unruffled, produced a faded photograph from 30 years ago, capturing the clock in our living room with a young me standing proudly beside it, long before Diane had ever entered our lives. "Mrs. Palmer," he said firmly, his tone measured but resolute, "please don't make this more difficult than necessary." The clock remained, as did countless other items she tried to claim, each attempt unraveling her facade further. As she prepared to depart, Diane paused in the foyer, her silhouette framed by the open doorway. For a fleeting moment, I wondered if she might offer an apology or seek some form of reconciliation. Instead, her voice dripped with bitterness. "You think you've won, but you'll end up alone, just like your father did." I stepped out of the study, meeting her gaze with unwavering calm. "My father was never alone," I replied, my voice steady, imbued with quiet conviction. "He had me, his true family, by his side until the very end. That's something you never understood and never will." Diane's lips parted as if to retort, but no words came. She turned abruptly and left without another syllable. As the heavy front door closed behind her, a profound sense of closure settled over me, like a long-held breath finally released. The house felt lighter, as if her departure had dispelled a lingering shadow that had clouded its warmth. I wandered through each room, my fingers brushing familiar surfaces, the smooth banister my father had gripped during late-night talks, the dining table where we shared countless meals. For the first time since his passing, I felt truly at home, the space reclaimed as a haven of memories and love. The weight of Diane's greed and deceit had lifted, leaving room for healing and renewal. 1 year later, I sat in my father's office, now my own, reviewing the details of our latest property acquisition. Under my leadership, the business had flourished, expanding into new markets while upholding the integrity my father had instilled. His framed photo rested on my desk, his warm smile a constant reminder of the lessons he imparted: resilience, foresight, and an unwavering commitment to doing what was right. The investigation into Diane's financial misconduct had concluded, exposing a trail of fraud that predated her marriage to my father. She faced legal repercussions for her attempts to siphon funds from his accounts during his final days. The last I heard, she had relocated to another state, her carefully crafted image as a grieving widow utterly shattered, her reputation in tatters. The house once again felt like a true home. I had preserved the elements that held family memories. My mother's vibrant paintings now adorned the living room walls, their colors breathing life into the space. The grandfather clock continued to stand sentinel in the foyer, its rhythmic chimes a comforting echo of my childhood. Yet, I had also made the space my own, updating areas to reflect my style while honoring the past. The blend of old and new felt like a metaphor for my journey, rooted in my father's legacy, yet forging my own path forward. Most importantly, I had honored my father's vision in the way he would have wanted, not merely by preserving what he built, but by building upon it with purpose. The scholarship program I established in his name had already transformed the lives of 3 promising students pursuing careers in real estate development. Each recipient's story of perseverance reminded me of the sacrifices my father made for me, reinforcing the cycle of giving back that he had always championed. Healing, I discovered, often arrives in unexpected forms. For me, it came through the respect and admiration I saw in our employees' eyes whenever they spoke of my father. They shared anecdotes of his kindness, his unyielding business ethics, and the pride he took in my achievements. "He'd show us photos of your college graduation," one longtime employee recounted, her voice warm with memory, beaming as if he'd won the lottery. These moments illuminated the true essence of his legacy, not just in the properties or bank accounts, but in the lives he touched and the values he instilled in everyone around him. Last week, while organizing files in the study, I stumbled upon an old photo album tucked away on a high shelf, its leather cover worn but intact. Inside was a letter dated just days before my father's death, his handwriting steady despite his frailty. "Sophie," it began, "you were always stronger than you knew. Remember that success isn't just about building wealth, it's about maintaining your integrity while doing so. You've made me proud in ways I never could have imagined." Tears blurred my vision as I read, but they were tears of gratitude. The album was filled with snapshots of our life together, us at property sites, laughing during family vacations, celebrating milestones big and small. Each image was a testament to the bond we shared, unbroken by time or adversity. The real victory was never just about securing what was rightfully mine. It was about honoring my father's legacy by embodying the principles he taught me: honesty, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to truth. The business continued to thrive, not merely as a financial enterprise, but as a beacon of the values my father had championed. Diane's attempts to seize what wasn't hers had ultimately revealed the strength I inherited from him, a strength forged in love, trust, and the courage to stand firm. Sometimes, the most profound revenge isn't found in courtroom triumphs or public vindication. It's in proving, through actions and choices, that goodness and truth will always prevail. As I sat in the study, the grandfather clock chiming softly in the distance, I felt my father's presence in every corner of the house, in every decision I made, and in the legacy we continued to build together. The battle was over, but the story of our shared journey, rooted in love and fortified by integrity, would endure for generations to come. Please feel free to comment below if you liked this. Remember to like and subscribe for more.